All right. Well, good morning, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants event. My name is Joe Grabowski, and I'll be your host for today. A big happy new year to all the classrooms out there. This is our first live event of 2026, so we're pretty excited to have you back here and joining us. If this is your first time with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants, we're all about bringing science, adventure, exploration, and conservation live into classrooms across North America and around the world. So visit our website, exploringbytheseat.com. You can find all the live events we have coming up for the month of January and some cool resources for your classrooms as well. So visit us there at exploringbytheseat.com. So to kick us off, I'm really excited to be connecting for a Pioneers of the Possible event. So this live series was created by Arctic and Antarctic explorer, climate advocate, and citizen scientist Sunniva Sorby. This unique series shines a spotlight on extraordinary individuals who are rewriting the rules of what's possible, breaking boundaries in their fields, and driving meaningful change in the world. So over the course of her career, Sunniva has journeyed to some of the most remote and awe-inspiring places on Earth, from Antarctica's icy expanses to the fragile ecosystems of the Arctic. Along the way, she's met extraordinary visionaries, scientists, explorers, innovators, artists, activists, whose work is shaping the future of our planet. Now, through Pioneers of the Possible, she's bringing them directly into classrooms and communities across Canada and the US. So let's reach in backstage and see if we can find Sunniva hanging out and waiting for us. Hey, Sunniva, how are you?
Hi, Joe. Good morning. I'm doing great, thanks. And I am just so humbled and honored that we get to kick this series off this year with Dr. Gabor Maté. This is an incredible opportunity for all of us on the call. I have never met him, but I feel like he shared some time with me in my living room through his books and all the work he's been doing. So.
Excellent. Well, we're going to get right into it shortly, but I do want to give a big shout out to all the groups, the individuals who are tuning in live on YouTube right now. Don't be shy to say hi in the chat. Send in your questions for us when the time comes. We really want today to be a discussion. We want to hear what you're thinking about, what's going on in your lives. And Sunniva, speaking of going on in life, it's been a while since we've connected. So let's get a quick update. What have you been up to? How are your holidays?
I have had the most amazing holiday because family visited. My nephew and his wife came here from the US and we just hung out a lot outside. We went fishing, we went snowshoeing, we went skiing, hiking, and that's just the best time in the world, right? With family. So it's great. And right now I'm sitting on Vancouver Island at home and two bald eagles. Sometimes I'm like, where am I? Just came flying past the front window. So very happy to be starting a new year. The year of the horse, February 16th. I'm ready.
Perfect. Excellent. Well, good. Glad to hear you're connected with nature. I think that's something important for everybody, especially the students tuning in, to get outside and connect a bit with nature. But I think it's time to bring our guest in and get things going. So a quick introduction before we do. Dr. Gabor Maté. He is... there we go. A retired physician and an internationally renowned speaker, highly sought after for his expertise on addiction, trauma, childhood development, and the relationship of stress and illness. He's the best-selling author of 5 books published in over 40 languages. His most recent book, The Myth of Normal, Trauma, Illness, and Healing in a Toxic Culture, is a New York Times, Sunday Times, and international bestseller. For his groundbreaking medical work and writing, he was awarded the Order of Canada. So let's reach backstage and see if we can get him in here with us right now. Hey, Dr. Maté, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. It's great to have you here with us today. Like I said, we're going to have a great conversation today. We've got some smiling faces backstage who I know are going to have lots of questions for us. And I think we'll have Sunniva kick things off to get us started.
Yeah, first, Dr. Maté, I just want to say heaps of thanks. I'm still reading this book that you co-wrote with your son, and this is an absolutely incredible and deeply insightful book for me, and I'm sure for many if they have not read it yet. I just want to start off with a question for you about the biology of loss that you've spoken about quite a bit. The
Right.
idea that our brains and our bodies respond deeply to disconnection. How do you believe that shows up in the lives of students today? Many of them growing up completely overwhelmed with constant stimulation, and yet, despite that, feel so deeply alone.
Yes. Well, I just read an article this morning. 11% of American kids have been diagnosed with attention deficit disorder. 11%. That means 1 in 10. Lots of kids are being diagnosed with anxiety, depression, ADHD, so-called oppositionality. Kids are having eating problems. Some of them have bulimia, anorexia. Some kids are cutting themselves, harming themselves. And there's a lot of bullying that's happening according to the literature and according to all the reports. Despite the so-called social media that is supposed to bring us together, more people are feeling lonely. In fact, there's an epidemic of loneliness in the Western world. Now, loneliness in the long term is not just a sense of feeling isolated, it actually affects the body. So that from the point of view of health, the studies have shown that extreme loneliness is as bad for your health as smoking a package of cigarettes a day. And the reason that is the case is because our emotions and our physiology, our minds and our bodies are inseparable. It's one unit. So whatever happens emotionally happens physiologically in the body. I could easily demonstrate that for you. I don't know how many people are watching here. I don't see who's online, but I can tell you something. I could change your body in a split second. I could change your body in a split second through the screen. How could I do that? If I screamed at you all of a sudden. If I screamed at you, your body would change. Your blood pressure would go up. Your heart rate would increase. There'll be stress hormones released from your adrenal gland. Your blood vessels would divert circulation away from your belly to your muscles so you could fight back or escape. In other words, the simple emotion of fear would change the state of your body. Now, that interactions between emotions and the body is 24/7. It's just all one unit. That also means that our emotions have a huge impact on our health. Now, emotions are not luxuries. Nature gave us emotions, not just us. Nature gave emotions to all mammals, even to fish, actually. Why do we have emotions? Because we need them for survival. We need fear for survival. If we didn't have fear, we couldn't protect ourselves. We need anger, healthy anger for survival, because without healthy anger, we don't know how to protect ourselves. If you transgress my boundaries, if you invade my space, I better get angry. No, stop it. Anger. We need love in order to survive, because without love, infants don't get looked after. And if infants don't get looked after, they die. We need playfulness, because play is more important for brain development than academic learning. I wish the schools would know that. So we have these emotions for survival, and those emotions show up in the body. Now, our emotions, what are they there for? They're there to modulate and to um, help function our social relationships, because emotions are social dynamics, they're social manifestations. If I'm afraid of something or somebody. If I love somebody or something, usually somebody. So emotions are social phenomena, which means that our social interaction, now since emotions affect our physiology, which is I just showed you, it also means that social relationships, which modulate our emotions, which trigger our emotions, affect our physiology. So, as one American physician said in 1977, that human beings are biopsychosocial creatures, which means that our biology is inseparable from our psychology, biopsycho, which is inseparable from our social relationships. So when I speak about the biology of loss, I'm talking about circumstances in modern society, and there are many of them, which undermine healthy social relationships, which then distort our emotions, which then affect the biology of our bodies. So whether it comes to ADHD or depression or anxiety or many physical illnesses like rheumatoid arthritis and so on, we're actually talking about not just biology, but the impact of troubled social relationships on our emotions, which then affect our biology. So when we lose socially, we lose physiologically. And just to finish the answer to your question, people are connected on the so-called social media, but they're not actually connected, because on social media, people present usually an image of themselves, and what they see is the image of the other, but not the real person.
Mm.
So I present via Facebook, where we present our face as we want other people to see them. But behind that face is very often a facade. And who we really are, what we really think, what we really feel, we keep close to ourselves. So I could be in a crowd of 1,000 people and feel totally isolated because they don't see me. They just see the image that I have. So I hope that makes sense to you.
Ooh. Yeah, it's fascinating how important it is to show up for people today, and first take care of the host so that we can show up with that authentic space with compassion and care.
Yeah,
Thank
the problem is people are afraid to show up as they are
you.
because we're so programmed for social acceptance or rejection.
Mm.
Excuse me. And we believe from a very early age on, for all kinds of reasons, that we're only acceptable to people if we show up in certain ways. But if we show up as our real selves, they won't like us. If they knew what I really felt, if they knew what I really thought, they wouldn't accept me. So people give up their true selves for the sake of social acceptance. And that starts very early age on. I mean, it starts off in Let's give you a simple example. Let's say you're the parent of a 2-year-old. Now, if you're the parent of a 2-year-old, and if you don't make your kid angry, you're probably not doing your job. Because the 2-year-old, not that we deliberately make them angry, but here's what happens. A 2-year-old wants a cookie before dinner. Now, if you're a good parent, you're not going to give the kid a cookie before dinner. You say, no cookie. Now, 2-year-olds, they think what they want is what they need. And they think they should have everything they want. That's just the natural state of a 2-year-old. Nothing wrong with that. That's just how we evolve. Let's face it, because we start life like that. What happens when we get born? We're hungry. We don't have to say anything. Somebody just shows up and feeds us. So we think that everything is coming to us. Okay, so the 2-year-old wants a cookie before dinner, and the mother or the father says, no cookie. Cookie! No cookie. Well, the kid gets angry. Nothing wrong with that. But what if the parents listen to one of these stupid parenting experts that tell the parents that anger is not acceptable in a 2-year-old? Then the kids get the message, you're going to be angry, you're going to be on your own. Time out. Go off to your room by yourself. The message the kid gets is, if I'm myself with my anger, I'm not acceptable to my parents. So I better suppress my anger for the sake of being accepted. And then that becomes how we behave in the world. So we never express how we really feel. Now, actually, there's nothing wrong with the 2-year-old being angry. And the kid should never get the message that you're not acceptable if you're angry. The parent can say, oh, you're really angry, aren't you? You really wanted that cookie. Yeah. Oh, sorry, no cookie. But you don't make the anger wrong. Now, when we get the message that our emotions are not acceptable, or let's say the father's an alcoholic and there's a lot of stress in the home, and the kid gets the message that only if I'm good and only if I behave really well can I preserve the peace in the family. Then I'll suppress who I really am for the sake of maintaining the peace. So kids get these messages all the time that they're only acceptable if they please others. And then that becomes a life habit. So that means that for a lifetime, we're afraid to show up as we really are. And then you go to school where you're told you have to behave well. And unfortunately, a lot of teachers are not trained to understand child behavior. They're not trained to understand children's emotions. So when children act out, they're punished rather than understood. And then you go to work, and then you have to do a good job. And, those that are producing well and pleasing others, they get all the praise. We get the praise not for who we are, but for how we perform and how we seem to others. So we forget who we really are. And that leaves us very isolated.
So, Gabor, the way we're going to do it today is we've collected questions in advance. We have viewers on YouTube. We have classrooms backstage. Mm-hmm. And this leads into what you've just talked about, leads really well into the first question that was sent in. And that is, students worried about fitting in, worried about appearing normal. So, that first question is, does normal exist? And what advice would you have for students to be more authentic and share who they actually are and not kind of fall into that trap of putting on a mask on social media or trying to please others?
Well, as I was kind enough to point out, my most recent book is called The Myth of Normal. Because normal is a myth. Now, there is a sense in which the word normal is valid. As a medical doctor, I was trained that there's a normal range of temperature for the human body. And if your temperature is too low, you're at risk. If your temperature is too high, you're at risk. As a doctor, I was trained that there's a normal range of blood pressure. So if your blood pressure is too low, you're at the risk of dying. If your blood pressure is too high, you're at the risk of dying. So normal means healthy and natural. But then there's a confusion that happens because people use normal also for whatever they used to, whatever is the custom, whatever is socially acceptable. So, for example, kids used to get beaten by their parents. Sometimes they still are. We know that spanking kids is as bad. Scientific studies have shown this, that spanking kids is as bad as more severe forms of child abuse. But it used to be, spare the rod, spoil the child. You know what's interesting? Indigenous people who are still living close to the land, they don't beat their kids. When the Europeans arrived in North America, they were appalled at how the natives raised their kids because the natives didn't beat their kids. But in European society, for a long time, it was normal to spank kids because everybody did it. So normal didn't mean healthy and natural. It meant whatever's anybody's used to. There are many things in this culture that are considered normal, but that are not healthy and natural at all. And a lot of the kids that are abnormal, and I've studied this, there's nothing wrong with them fundamentally. They're just not fitting in to the unnatural norms of an artificial society. Or maybe something happened to them. Maybe they're very sensitive. And so they picked up a lot of stress from their environment. So then they're restless, that they have trouble paying attention. And then we call them abnormal. But they're not abnormal. Their response is a perfectly normal response to an abnormal situation. So now everybody worries about fitting in. That's because we haven't learned. They didn't teach us that for our health, it's much more important that we're true to ourselves, that we're connected to ourselves. And so a lot of the so-called abnormal kids are just reflecting the abnormalities and dysfunctions in their culture. And rather than seeing them as the problem, we should see them as the messengers that tell us that there's something wrong with the environment. And let me tell you something else. When I was writing The Myth of Normal, I talked to a friend of mine who's a part Lakota, indigenous North American psychiatrist. His name is Louis Smell Madrona. And those told me that in his Lakota culture, when somebody gets sick, rather than everybody looking at him as abnormal, the community would say to that person, "Thank you. Your illness represents some imbalance in our community. So you're showing us that there's something out of balance. Thank you. So your healing is our healing." But in our schools, what do we do with these so-called abnormal kids? We tell them that they have some kind of pathology, or we punish them and isolate them instead of learning what is it that they're telling us about the environment.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Maté. So we're going to bring in some classrooms now because we want to see some faces. We want to hear what students are thinking and what questions that they have on their minds. So I'm going to start off, and we've got a few classrooms who are going to be here on camera and join us. We're going to start off with Miss Bauer's group. They're in Calgary, Alberta. Let's see if I can get them back from backstage. Hey, Miss Bauer, how's your program today? Hey, everyone. All right. I wonder if someone there has a question for us to get things started.
So not a specific question about Dr. Maté, but a question about the things we've been talking about. Jackson, do you have a question at all? Yeah? Okay, what's your question, bud?
How do I deal with stress?
Do you want to come quickly up to the screen and just, did you hear that, Dr. Maté?
I didn't hear the question. Can you repeat it, please?
Sorry, quickly, bud. Run. Just say it right into the computer there.
How do you deal with stress?
Am I Jewish?
No, sorry. How do you deal with stress, Dr. Maté?
Oh, how do you deal with stress? Yeah. By the way, those of you that are in Calgary, I'll be speaking in Calgary sometime early in April. You could come and see me if you wanted to, or your parents could. How do you deal with stress? Well, the first thing is you have to look at what is causing stress in your life. And stress could be usually because somebody's hurting you, or somebody's putting too much expectation on you, or somebody is not giving you information that you need. So you have to look at the source of stress in your life. Now, when you're kids, you don't have as much power as you do when you have adults, because children necessarily are regulated or controlled or live in a world that's run by adults. So it's the parents that need to understand what stresses their kids. And the biggest stress is when you're not listened to, when you're not heard, when people misunderstand you, when people have wrong ideas about you. So they're not seeing you. And so how do you deal with that? Well, that depends on what happens in the home or what happens in the school. If you can say to the teacher, no, you don't understand me right now. That's not what I mean. You don't see me right now. Please listen to me. If your parents can listen to that, and many good parents will listen, then that will reduce the stress. If the teacher can listen to you, not just tell you what to do, which is part of their job necessarily, but also listen to you, that will reduce their stress. Now, one more thing that can stress kids is what their peers, what their friends think of them. And the important thing is there somebody that you can talk to? So the biggest stress reduction is having somebody that you can talk to. You can say to Ms. Bowers, you know what? So-and-so doesn't like me. That really bothers me. If you can express it and somebody can hear that, that'll reduce their stress. Now, in addition to that, there are certain things you can learn to do. For example, you can learn breathing techniques. So for example, I'll teach you one right now. So I want all of you in this classroom to do this with me. Well, when I say I want you, I don't want you, I invite you. If you want to do it, do it. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. But I'm going to teach you a breathing technique that I use to reduce stress. I start my day with this. When I get up in the morning, once I'm dressed, I sit down and I do this breathing. And I do it several times a day. Because breath really helps to reduce stress in the body. So here's how it goes. It's called 4-7-8. 4-7-8. You'll take an in-breath for a count of 4. You'll hold the breath for a count of 7. And you breathe in through your nose, and then through your mouth, you'll breathe out. You kind of put your tongue against your teeth and you breathe out. So I'll show it to you once. In breath for 4. Hold for 7. Out for 8. Four, 7, 8. Now I invite you, if you want, to do it with me. I'm just going to show with my hands. I'm not going to speak anymore. Starting now. And you do that 4 times. Whenever you're upset or whenever you remember, you do 4, 7, 8 4 times. That'll help you reduce the stress. Okay?
All right. Perfect. Gabor, thanks so much for that. I think I was looking backstage and I could see the classrooms trying that in their classrooms. So that's a great strategy for them to use. I want to go now to Mrs. Boulis's class. They're grade 6s in Canada, Ontario. I'm going to bring them in here. How are we doing today, grade 6s?
Trying to get the mic on.
The camera.
We've got the mic. I think you might. There we go. We've got
Yes.
the camera too. Hey, everybody.
How can
Can you
stress
come closer, Sadie? Thank you.
how can stress affect our sleep and education?
How can stress affect what, Joe?
Sleep and education.
Sleep. Sleep is a huge problem. And when people are stressed, they have trouble sleeping. What happens is that the brain is too active. And stress isn't just an emotional thing. It's not just something that you emotionally feel. Stress is physiological. Stress means that your body's different. For example, there's a stress hormone. I'm not going to go into a lot of biology now, but we do have a gland on top of our kidneys, which is called the adrenal gland. Renal means kidney. Adrenal means on top of the kidney. And the adrenal gland releases stress hormones. One of them is named after the adrenal gland. It's called adrenaline. Now, adrenaline makes you alert and it gives you more energy. But if you have too much of it, especially at night, you can't sleep. So if you've had a lot of stress during the day, you might have too much adrenaline. So that goes back to the question about how to deal with stress. But it also means before you go to sleep, don't do stressful things. It's really a bad thing to be on social media before you go to bed, because that tries to make you excited. It doesn't calm you. It makes you more hyper. And screens are not a good thing to be watching before you try to sleep. So now, when I'm stressed, my mind is on all kinds of different things. I can't pay attention to what I'm reading or what I'm studying. And if I sleep poorly, I'm not as alert in the classroom. So your question, it all goes together. The more stress there is, the more poor you sleep. The poorer you sleep, the more stress you get, and the less attention you can pay. So that it's really important. So for example, do this breath exercise before you go to bed that I just taught you. Do it several times a day. If he feels stressed, don't feel abnormal. It's very normal for human beings to feel stressed. What's abnormal is to stay alone with it. If there's anybody in your life that you can talk to about being stressed, talk to them. And a lot of the kids that are thought to have learning difficulties or they're not smart enough, nah. The problem is they're too stressed. And so that the adults really need to pay attention to the stresses that kids are under.
Okay, absolutely. And those breathing techniques, I think, are a great way that classrooms can do, or students can do things in the classroom, do things at home. And I think that's so important too, is talking to somebody. I think students sometimes think maybe it shows a sign of weakness, or they're scared to approach a trusted adult and talk to them. And when really just the act of talking and sharing.
Can I show you something?
Absolutely, yeah.
I'll be right back.
Yeah, go for it.
Maybe many of you know this book. It's called The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. It's by Charlie McKesey, a British writer. It's mostly drawings. It's mostly pictures. And it's about these four friends: the boy, the mole, the fox, and the horse. And it's a beautiful book. It's sold millions of copies around the world. It's a big bestseller. I met the author once in London. Anyway, the reason I'm bringing it up is because when you just said ask for help, the horse, which is in this book, the wisest character amongst these four friends, he's asked, what's the most courageous thing you've ever said? What's the most courageous things you've ever said? And you know what the horse says? He said, help. So asking for help is not the sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength. Because the person who's really weak, they're afraid to show their weakness. They're afraid to show their vulnerability. They're afraid to show that they need help. I was like that for a long time. I thought I could help everybody else. As a doctor and a writer, I could help everybody else, but I didn't need any help. Well, guess what? I do. So I'm 82 now, and I'm much stronger than I used to be, which means I can ask for help when I need it. And I do. So actually, asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign that you respect yourself. You respect yourself and you believe yet that you deserve support. That's a sign of strength.
All right, absolutely. I've got Sunava. I'm going to bring Sunava in. Sunava, I know you want to share something here too.
Well, I just want to thank you for that, Dr. Maté, because we're living in such an interesting time right now. And I personally, grew up Norwegian. We're taught, to be stoic and hardcore and never ask for help. And that served me well on physical expeditions, but it did not serve me well navigating life at home. After you come back from these long trips. And I learned the hard way that asking for help is just what you shared. It's the greatest sign of strength, I think, that we can exhibit. And I just want to reiterate that because I feel like there's a lot of silent suffering going on out there. And that if youth and even adults can understand that the more you can talk to somebody, read your material, the better able we are to understand our own limitations. And it's the beautiful package that we are.
I hope all the classrooms will get a copy of this book, The Boy, the Mole, and the Horse, and the Fox. Beautiful teaching in this book.
Thank you.
Awesome. I want to go to another classroom now. Vancouver, so close to you, Sunava. We've got a crew here in Vancouver. Hey, everybody.
Hey, Vancouver, my home city.
Why did you decide to be a doctor?
Do you know something? Do you know what I did before I was a doctor? I was a teacher. I taught high school, but all my life I wanted to be a doctor. I grew up all my life wanting to be a doctor. My grandfather, who I lost when I was 6 months of age, he has been a doctor, and I always grew up thinking I wanted to be a doctor. And why? Because it's one way of helping humanity. It's to be a good doctor, you're helping humanity. So that always appealed to me. That was always something I wanted to do. Also, it's a good way to make a living. So that's important. So those are the reasons that I was aware of. But I'm going to tell you something difficult now. I don't know if I can get this across. Sometimes the reason we do things has different parts to it. There's a part that we're consciously aware of. So I was aware that I wanted to help people. I was aware that I wanted to make a good living. The part I wasn't aware of is I also wanted to feel important. Now, why did I want to feel important? Because I didn't get the message when I was very small that I was. So when there's something that you don't get as a kid, then you try and get it from the world later on. So there was this drive that I should be important. And if you're a doctor, you're important. That's not a good reason. That's not a healthy reason. Because it means that you're trying to get from the world something that should be inside you. So those are the three reasons. Two of them really good, and one of them not so good. And so the reason I didn't become a doctor in the first place is because I didn't know this at the time. I found out decades later, but I have all the traits of what's called attention deficit disorder. So when it comes to studying the science courses that you have to go through to be a doctor, I just didn't have the discipline. I didn't have the attention. So I became a high school teacher. I enjoyed that, but I felt, no, this isn't really me. So after 3 years of teaching, I decided, okay, I'm going to do it. And now I had the motivation and I had the discipline, and I went back to medical school. So I was a bit older than my classmates because they came right out of university and they went into medicine. I first taught high school. And ultimately, to answer your question, when I was a teacher and I'd visit somebody in a hospital, a friend of mine, I always said, I belong here. So I became a doctor. You know why? Because I had a calling. Inside, something was telling me this is what you need to do. And I'm telling you guys, pay attention to what's inside you. Pay attention to what you're called to do. Not what the world is telling you should do, but what excites you, what turns you on, what inspires you. It's in there for everybody. And eventually I paid attention to that. So that's why I became a doctor.
I absolutely love that answer, Gabor. I think it's so important that students understand that chasing your passion can be so rewarding and fruitful, but also that there's no right or wrong way to get there. You know, twists and turns and unforeseen circumstances. And, you know, that's something that happens in a lot of careers. So I love that question from classrooms. And I think that was a great answer. I really appreciate that. I know the students do too. We have a homeschool crew, Livy, hanging out with us today in North Carolina. How are we doing today?
We're doing great.
How are you guys?
We're good. Thank you. Thanks for asking.
Yeah.
Very good.
So my question was, what can we learn from nature and animals to model our own relationships?
For what can you learn from nature and animals about relationships?
Yes,
Yes.
for our own relationships.
For your own relationships, yes. Okay, what a great question. Well, first of all, animals trust their gut feelings.
Mm-hmm.
We all have gut feelings. You know, we all think that intelligence comes just from the brain up here, and that's part of our intelligence. But there's two other ways of knowing, at least. Sometimes people say, I knew it in my heart.
Mm-hmm.
And they did, because the heart has knowledge. It has a nervous system. It has a brain. And then there's the gut. There's our gut feelings. Our gut feelings are telling us about reality. Now, an animal that doesn't pay attention to their gut feelings, how long do they survive? They don't.
Mm-hmm.
So, one thing that animals can teach us about relationships, pay attention to your gut feelings.
Mm-hmm.
If something's telling you this is not right, pay attention to it, because it probably isn't.
Mm.
Or somebody tells you, or we have a strong sense that you're safe, you probably are.
It's like flame.
Okay? So that's the first thing. The second thing is little birds don't survive without the love of their parents.
Mm-hmm.
And fish do, but not fish. You know, once you get to be a bird, you need your mom and your dad to look after you.
Mm-hmm.
And that means that the mom and the dad need to be wired to connect with you, and you're wired to connect with mom and dad. And you can see this with cats or monkeys or dolphins, or that there's a relationship between the younger generation and the parent generation.
Mm-hmm.
So that relationship has to be protected and respected. Also, if you look at animals, at a certain point, the baby bear is not a baby bear anymore. And he says, bye, mom, and that's it. So at a certain point, you become an individual where you are no longer under the control and the protection of your elders, but you are looking after yourself. The human beings never get past that point. We're not like bears. We don't go off on our own in the woods. So for human beings, relationships are important throughout life. And first, our relationship with our parents, our grandparents, our friends, cousins, uncles, aunts, and then with the community. So what can we learn from animals? Gut feelings, the importance of love, and the importance of relationship. And eventually, also the importance of becoming your own individual.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Yes,
much.
thank
What
you.
a great question. Thanks, Levi.
Yeah.
Very cool. Sunova, I want to bring you back in for a moment. I think you had a question, a follow-up to that.
That was a really lovely question and powerful answer. Thank you. I'd like to zoom out, 35,000 feet for a second.
But you know what, Suneva, can I say something else?
Sure.
Because I just realized when you came on screen, I didn't fully answer the question. She also asked about nature, and I didn't answer that part. and you can answer this better than I can. Yeah, you can, because you've been out there a lot more than I have. What does nature teach us? Everything is connected. It's all one. So that the soil is connected to the water is connected to the trees are connected to each other, the animals are connected with the plants. In other words, we're all one. So the unity and the oneness of everything, that's what nature can teach us. I'm sure you could say some words about that.
Oh, the natural world has been my greatest teacher, aside from the wonderful books I've had, the delight in reading. But I was at at Plum Village, the monastery in France, less than 2 years ago. And it was hosted by Christiane Figueres. It was a climate and nature retreat.
Okay.
And the intention was to hold space for all of those on the front lines of dealing with, loss of habitat, loss of species, loss of life, loss of language, all of that. And it was a really profound experience for me in a lot of ways, but mostly because it was my first sort of rip off the Band-Aid around how deep the suffering was for some of these people on the front lines. So my question is for the adults and also the youth on the call, is maybe it's just the advent of all of the information that's coming at us from all angles, but we're experiencing such an onslaught of trauma by watching the loss of things as we know it. And I wonder what advice you might have for for all of us as we're experiencing and exposed to this. It's hard to get away from all that information, and how best to maybe take care of ourselves through this.
Yeah. Well, I wish I had all the wisdom that that question requires in response. But it's true. If we're actually looking at the real world, see, if you look at the Disney world or the world of TV cartoons or internet games, that's fine. But we're not looking at reality. And if we're looking at reality, what do we see? We see that the climate is changing due to human activity. As a result of that climate change, people are losing their homes. And their health is threatened. Species are dying out. Almost every year, we lose some species of animals. Forests, the Amazon forest, one of the biggest forests in the world, and it's a source of oxygen because trees make oxygen, and they protect the climate. And the Amazon is being destroyed so that people can make more money. And then, not to mention all the human suffering. We see children being killed all over the world. In some places more than others. I won't mention them here. But you see kids being killed and wounded and hungry. And it's very painful to watch all that. Very painful to watch all that. And bewildering and scary. The only thing that'll get us through all that is connection with each other. So to the parents and the teachers who are watching this, you can't just by your own efforts overnight change the reality that's out there. You can't. I mean, you'd like to, I'd like to. That's not how the world works. So how do we protect our kids? By connecting with them, by making them feel safe with us, by giving them the sense that they can share their anxieties, by us being as resilient as possible so that we model resilience to them. So the way you get through all that is human connection. And that's a very inadequate answer, but it's the best I can do under the circumstances. Can't hear you, Joe.
Thank you.
There we go. Yeah, it's not an adequate answer. That's an absolutely great answer. The more technology we have and the more people say it's supposed to bring us together, the more I think it pushes us apart. It keeps us away from nature. It keeps us away from that human connection. So I think that's so important for students to make sure they have that connection with their classmates, with their teachers, with their parents, talking and sharing their feelings, their anxieties around climate change and politics and what they're seeing in the news around the world. I think that's so important, and keeping that up inside is just going to lead to that stress that keeps them up and from developing. And
Joe, there's one thing I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Not to argue with you, but I would reverse the order in which you listed. When you said you said the first thing is talk with your classmates. No. Talk with the adults in your life first if you can.
Mm.
Because the adults have the experience and it's their responsibility to look after you. It's not your classmates' responsibility to look after you. So I don't say don't talk to your classmates.
Yeah.
But it's the job of the parents and the teachers to make sure that they're available as the first go-to, not the classmates.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Awesome. Well, Sunniva, I know you want to jump in for a moment. I think you were going to share a little text with us.
Well, I just, this book, I just love, and this is on page 486. You share that there's a recent sea change in the public's recognition of a trauma's prevalence and significance in our lives, and I think that's so important, which is one gift of many that you bring to the table, Gabor, and thank you. And I also just want to, from that same page, just share something that you wrote, that it leaves it up to each of us as individuals and as groups to seek out and support alternative sources of knowledge, to expose ourselves to uncertainty, to enter into the points of view of others, whether we agree with them or not, to listen to people doing hard activist work on the ground, and to stay alert to the many tendrils the myth of normal extends to keep itself normalized. And I think that is so important because we're living in a very divisive, there's so much information, and you've shared so many profound insights, including, find that thing that you're very passionate about, to care about. And that is an inside journey that one takes as we evolve into the beautiful beings that we are. But also how important it is to live the questions. And not seek to have hard-lined answers around what we think we should be, but allow ourselves space to become the people we're meant to be by sharing that with others. So thank you so much for all that you bring to the table.
Thank you. And, everybody, the most important thing you can do is to keep asking questions of other people, of the world, and of yourself. Just stay curious.
All right. Excellent. Well, I want to start off with a huge shout out to our classrooms, the teachers, the parents who tuned in. Thank you for sending in those amazing questions in advance. Thank you for the great live questions. It's always great to see your faces and hear what's on your mind. So a huge shout out to the students. We love those questions. Sunniva, thank you so much for making this event possible today. And Gabor, thank you so much for, talking to the students, sharing some of your wisdom, sharing some of what you've learned over the years, and giving them advice and tips and techniques for, de-stressing their lives and making more human connections.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks, everyone. We're going to sign off for now.